Okay, this is Charlie here, and this is my first video actually reviewing a model. So I figured I'd start with this one. It's the Academy 148 scale P-38F Glacier Girl. If you don't know the backstory of the Glacier Girl, go on YouTube. Lots of really good documentaries. There's one really good one out of Kentucky. Talks about how, she was buried in the ice for 60 years until they dug it out of the ice in some glacier in Greenland and brought her back, and 80% of her parts are original, so they put her back together again, and this is the model. And yes, the actual Glacier Girl does fly, and you can go check it out in a museum in Middleborough, Kentucky. Anyways, so this was a really fun model. It was very interesting. I've never built an Academy model, and I thought overall it was pretty good. The directions were a little interesting. I think partly because it's interpreted from Korean, but I think the other part too is that there, you could have built an active P-38 that flew during the war and wasn't buried in ice, and so there were two models you could build. So it got a little bit confusing, but overall the directions were, pretty spot on. If this is your very first model that you've ever built, maybe I would build something else, just to get your feet wet and stuff like that. The decaling, once again, I mean, that is a very complicated mishmashery of numbers, and so the decal sheet is very complicated. So, you gotta know what you're doing. You gotta have built a few models ahead of this one. So, but I still thought it was a really good model. Now, a couple of things. I bought it's hard to see, it's under my desk. It's a no-name brand air compressor from spraygunner.com, and it worked amazingly. This is the very first time I've ever airbrushed before. Never airbrushed in my life, so critique all you want. I also bought an Iwata Neo airbrush, which worked out swimmingly. And I also went to Harbor Freight and bought their little compressor, and that came with an airbrush. And for 89 bucks, it actually worked pretty well. So I used it for some of the big spraying. And anyways, so on to the model. For the model, like I said, I used my new airbrush that I had bought. I had bought this Tamiya kind of a liquid glue, and worked out pretty well. Learned how to use it firsthand. I bought this little guy. This is basically liquid gravity, they call it. And it's like a weight system, because you had to put like 20 grams of weight. I actually had to put a little bit more. Packed it in with clay, put a couple of fishing weights in there, and then eventually had to shove some liquid gravity in there in through the cockpit, just to weigh her down, because this is definitely a tail sitter. Even with all that weight, if I just give it a slight little nudge, she's sitting. So, also, being new to airbrushing, I decided, I'm just going to go with a brand and see how it works, and I ended up using the Vallejo Model Air AV. Worked out great. As you can see, the color match is outstanding. I really had to dig around to find this burnt iron, they call it. So I really had to play around with a lot of different things. I ended up using some old Testors paints with some copper mixed in with some brown, and that worked out well. So overall, the fit and finish of the model was really good. The panel lines, I kind of experimented with this. I got a very thin, an extra thin Sharpie, and I drew in the panel lines, just played with it because I'm like, yeah, why not, you know? And I'm actually kind of excited with the way it turned out. Really, as a pre-wash kind of thing. Did it before I painted it. Didn't do it with some of the other ones, so I might end up using one of the Vallejo model washes. I'm kind of debating whether or not I'm going to do that. I don't want to mess up the plane. Plus, you know, it's kind of a show plane, so it's not going to have all that wear and tear. But you can really kind of see where that pre-wash kind of stood out. It doesn't look really great on video, but it's actually pretty cool. Pretty cool. Anyways, so like I said, very pleased with the fit and finish of the model. Came out very nicely. The decals are spot on. So I think that's it. Oh yeah, for the matte finish that I put on there, I always like to give it a nice little matte finish, just to kind of really make the decals kind of blend in with the plane itself. I use this Rust-Oleum. I've used it with all of my models. It's a Rust-Oleum Painter's Touch Ultra Cover Matte Clear, and it works out pretty well. So, oh yeah, one last thing. I am using, while I'm airbrushing, you know, all the videos I watch said, get a mask. And I just am recovering from COVID and COVID pneumonia, so, which was not fun and still is not fun. So anyway, so I bought this mask at Harbor Freight for like 18 bucks. That's a medium. It is a Garrison, basically it's a painter's mask. It's got 2 filters, has directions on how to clean it. It just comes like in this plastic, you know, bag kind of thing. But it was like, yeah, I think it was like, at the most I paid like 20 bucks for the whole thing, mask and filter, and it's worked out very well. You know, it's got the 3 chambers in there, the filter chambers. While I'm using the paints, even when I use this matte clear, nothing really comes through. So yeah. So anyways, the Glacier Girl is complete. I know I haven't put the cockpit because I like doing the matte finish obviously before I put the cockpit in. But anyways, overall I'm gonna give it like a 9.5 out of 10. Just because some of the parts it was a little tricky. Really had to kind of play around with it to get it to fit right, especially the landing gear doors. Those were a little titchy to get in there, but for the most part, for P-38, which has you know, these 2 booms right here, and you know, this big long wing right here, and you got to kind of attach all these parts together, it actually fit pretty nicely. So yeah, I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. Highly recommend this. Was not very expensive. I bought it in Hobbytown here in Kennesaw, Georgia. And yeah, good model. Anyways, thanks. Bye.